They thought we were just another primitive species begging for scraps at the galactic table. The Galactic Council had seen thousands of worlds rise and fall, countless civilizations that either bent the knee or faded into cosmic dust. When humanity's first diplomatic ship arrived at their gleaming capital station, the council members barely looked up from their data tablets. Another backwater planet, they whispered in languages that spanned star systems. Barely past nuclear fission. No quantum networks. Still using chemical rockets. They were right about our technology. We were centuries behind their advanced civilizations. But, they made one critical error in their calculations: they measured our worth by our weapons instead of our will. When the rejection came, stamped with the official seal that had crushed the dreams of 100 other species, something ignited in the human spirit that the galaxy had never seen before. We didn't retreat to our small blue world to lick our wounds. We didn't accept our place as cosmic peasants. Instead, we did something that would echo through the stars for generations to come. We built an empire that would make the Council's 1,000-year-old federation look like a children's playground. This is the story of how humanity turned rejection into revolution, how we transformed from cosmic outcasts into the masters of our own destiny. It's the tale of what happens when you underestimate a species that has spent its entire history proving that impossible is just another word for not yet. The Galactic Council thought they were maintaining order by keeping us out. They had no idea they were unleashing chaos itself upon the stars. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood before the towering crystalline structure that housed the Galactic Council's high chamber, her breath forming small clouds in the artificially cold atmosphere of Station Nexus. The massive space station orbited a neutron star whose radiation had been harnessed to power the political heart of known civilization. Around her, beings from across the galaxy moved with purpose through corridors that seemed to stretch into infinity. The journey from Earth had taken 3 months using humanity's most advanced fusion drives. While other species casually teleported across star systems or folded space like origami, humans had crawled through the void at a fraction of light speed, burning through resources they could barely spare. Sarah's small diplomatic team represented the hopes and dreams of 8 billion people who had spent decades preparing for this moment. Her aide, Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez, checked his tablet for the 1,000th time since they'd arrived. "The preliminary scans of our technology are complete," he said, his voice tight with barely contained anxiety. "The Council's Xenobiology department finished their biological assessments yesterday. We should have an answer within the hour." Sarah nodded, adjusting the formal blue uniform that represented the best of human craftsmanship but looked primitive next to the flowing energy garments worn by other species. Through the transparent aluminum walls, she could see the council chamber where representatives from over 300 star systems gathered to debate the fate of emerging civilizations. The Ultrans sat in their section, their tall, graceful forms radiating the quiet confidence of a species that had mastered faster-than-light travel before humans had discovered agriculture. Their technology was so advanced that their ships seemed to be grown rather than built, organic curves that bent physics to their will. They had been the first to achieve galactic recognition and still held 3 permanent seats on the High Council. Nearby, the Zephyrian delegation floated in specialized atmospheric chambers, their gaseous forms shimmering with patterns of light that served as their language. They controlled the galaxy's primary trade routes and had developed economic systems that made Earth's most complex financial instruments look like children's games with colored stones. The crystalline collective clustered in their designated area, silicon-based beings whose very thoughts operated at frequencies that could process calculations at the speed of light. They had solved mathematical theorems that human scientists could barely comprehend and had built computational networks that spanned entire solar systems. Each species represented power beyond Earth's imagination. Each had something unique to offer the galactic community. Each had earned their place through technological superiority or cultural achievement that dwarfed anything humanity had accomplished. "What do you think they'll say?" Marcus asked, though they both knew the answer they feared most. Before Sarah could respond, a melodic chime echoed through the waiting area. The universal translator implanted behind Sarah's ear converted the harmonic tones into words. "The Terran delegation will now receive the Council's decision." They walked through corridors lined with representatives from civilizations that treated starflight like humans treated ocean voyages. Sarah caught glimpses of technology that seemed more like magic than science, beings who communicated through quantum entanglement, ships that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, and weapons that could reshape matter at the subatomic level. The High Council chamber was a sphere nearly a kilometer in diameter, with delegates arranged in concentric rings around a central platform where decisions were announced. The air hummed with the energy of a dozen different atmospheric processors, each maintaining the environmental needs of various species. Gravity fluctuated gently across different sections, accommodating beings that had evolved under wildly different conditions. High Chancellor Zyxera of the Ultaran Republic stood at the central podium, her silver skin reflecting the chamber's bioluminescent lighting. She was ancient by human standards, having served on the council for over 2 centuries, and her voice carried the weight of galactic authority. The Galactic Council has completed its evaluation of the species known as Homo sapiens from the planet designated Terra 3, she began, her words translating seamlessly into the hundreds of languages represented in the chamber. We have examined their technological capabilities, their cultural development, their biological characteristics, and their potential contributions to galactic civilization. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs as she waited for the verdict that would shape humanity's future among the stars. The evaluation committee has noted several concerning factors in their assessment. The Terran species demonstrates significant technological limitations. Their fastest vessels achieve barely 3% of light speed. They lack quantum communication networks, dimensional manipulation capabilities, or practical energy-matter conversion systems. Their computational abilities remain bound by silicon-based processors that operate at frequencies we achieved millennia ago. Sarah felt the first cold touch of disappointment, but she forced herself to remain composed. They had known the technological gap was massive. Humanity's application had been based on other factors: their resilience, their creativity, their potential for growth. Furthermore, Chancellor Zyxera continued, the Terran species exhibits troubling behavioral patterns. Their planet's surface bears the scars of numerous conflicts fought with primitive nuclear weapons. Their social structures remain fragmented into competing nation-states. They have not achieved the unity of purpose that we require from Council members. Their resource management practices have led to significant environmental degradation of their homeworld. The words hit like physical blows. Every criticism was accurate, every flaw a painful reminder of humanity's shortcomings compared to the advanced civilizations surrounding them. However, the Chancellor said, and Sarah's hopes flickered briefly, the committee has also noted certain intriguing characteristics. The Terran species demonstrates remarkable adaptability and survival instincts. Their creative problem-solving abilities are noteworthy, and they have shown unexpected resilience in the face of planetary challenges. Sarah held her breath. Nevertheless, after careful deliberation, the Galactic Council has concluded that the Terran species is not yet ready for membership. Their application for recognition as a galactic civilization is hereby rejected. They may reapply for evaluation in 50 standard years, provided they demonstrate significant advancement in both technological and social development. The words echoed through the chamber with the finality of a judge's gavel. 50 years. For most species in the chamber, that was a brief moment, barely worth noting. For humans, with their shorter lifespans and rapid pace of change, it was a lifetime of isolation. Sarah stood frozen as representatives from various civilizations offered polite words of encouragement. The Ultarans suggested patience and continued development. The Zephyrians mentioned potential trade agreements that might be possible in the distant future. The Crystalline Collective offered to share basic mathematical principles that might help accelerate human technological growth. All of it felt like charity offered to a species considered too primitive to matter. As they walked back through the station's corridors, Sarah noticed how other beings barely acknowledged their presence. To them, humans were just another failed applicant, one of countless species that hadn't made the grade. They would return to their distant world and probably be forgotten within a few galactic standard years. In the small quarters assigned to the human delegation, Sarah's team gathered around a conference table that had seen dozens of other disappointed species. The weight of failure hung heavy in the recycled air. "What do we tell Earth?" asked Dr. Elizabeth Warren, the mission's chief scientist. "How do we explain to 8 billion people that we're not good enough to join galactic civilization?" "We tell them the truth," Sarah said, her voice steadier than she felt. "We tell them that the Council sees us as children playing with toys while adults conduct serious business. We tell them that our technology is primitive, our society is chaotic, and our achievements are insignificant by galactic standards.
And then, what? Marcus asked. Do we just accept it? Do we spend 50 years trying to catch up to civilizations that have had millennia to develop? Do we beg for their scraps of knowledge and hope they'll eventually consider us worthy? Sarah looked out through the viewport at the vast expanse of space surrounding the station. Somewhere out there, hundreds of civilizations conducted business, traded resources, shared knowledge, and built a galactic community that didn't include humanity. They were connected by networks of communication and transportation that made Earth seem as isolated as a remote island in an endless ocean. Maybe we've been thinking about this wrong, she said slowly. Maybe we've been so focused on joining their club that we forgot what we're actually capable of. What do you mean? Dr. Warren asked.
I mean that every species in that chamber got there by being exceptional at something.
The Ultrans mastered spacetime manipulation. The Zephyrians created the perfect economic system. The Crystalline Collective achieved computational perfection.
But none of them did it by copying someone else. They found their own path.
Sarah's mind was racing now, pieces of a larger picture beginning to form. What if we stopped trying to catch up to them? What if we found our own way to the stars?
The technology gap is enormous, Dr. Warren protested. It would take centuries to develop faster than light travel using conventional methods. By then, they'll have advanced even further beyond us.
Conventional methods, Sarah repeated. But humans have never been conventional.
We've always found ways to do impossible things with inadequate resources. We've survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that should have wiped us out.
We've built civilizations from scratch multiple times. We've never had the luxury of following the easy path.
She stood up and began pacing the small room, energy building in her voice. The Council rejected us because we don't fit their model of how a galactic civilization should develop.
But maybe that's exactly what we need. Maybe the galaxy needs something different.
You're talking about building our own interstellar civilization, Marcus said.
Without their help. Without their technology. Without their approval.
I'm talking about proving that their way isn't the only way, Sarah replied. I'm talking about showing them that they made a mistake when they underestimated humanity.
The room fell silent as the implications sank in.
What Sarah was suggesting was ambitious beyond anything humanity had ever attempted. It would require resources they didn't have, technology they hadn't invented, and cooperation on a scale that Earth had never achieved. But it was also quintessentially human, taking rejection and transforming it into motivation, turning disadvantage into opportunity, refusing to accept that impossible meant defeat. When we get back to Earth, Sarah said, her voice carrying a conviction that surprised even her, we're not going to tell them that we failed.
We're going to tell them that we found a better way forward. We're going to tell them that humanity doesn't need permission to reach for the stars.
Outside the viewport, the neutron star's radiation painted swirling patterns across the station's hull, and somewhere in that cosmic dance of energy and matter, the seeds of an empire were beginning to take root.
The Galactic Council had made their decision.
They had looked at humanity and found them wanting, dismissing them as another primitive species that might someday evolve into something worth noticing. They had no idea what they had just set in motion. The journey back to Earth would take 3 months, but Sarah knew that by the time they arrived home, everything would be different. The rejection that was meant to keep humanity in its place would instead become the catalyst for something the galaxy had never seen before. The Council thought they were maintaining order. They thought they were protecting galactic civilization from the chaos of unworthy species. They were about to learn that some forms of chaos couldn't be contained, and that the most dangerous thing you could do to humanity was tell them they weren't good enough to succeed. The United Nations General Assembly had never been quieter. Representatives from every nation on Earth sat in stunned silence as Ambassador Sarah Chen concluded her report on humanity's rejection by the Galactic Council. The massive hall, usually filled with the buzz of diplomatic conversation and political maneuvering, felt like a tomb. Secretary General Maria Santos sat at the head of the assembly, her weathered hands folded carefully as she processed what she had just heard. At 73, she had dedicated her life to bringing nations together, to finding common ground among competing interests. Now she faced the reality that humanity itself had been found wanting by powers beyond their world. "Let me ensure I understand correctly," Santos said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's advanced acoustics. "The Galactic Council has determined that humanity lacks the technological sophistication, social unity, and cultural development necessary for membership in galactic civilization. They have given us 50 years to prove ourselves worthy of reconsideration." "That is correct," Sarah replied from the podium where she had delivered humanity's first and last report on galactic diplomacy. "They view us as a primitive species that may eventually evolve into something worth their attention." The Chinese representative, Dr. Liu Wei, stood to address the assembly. "Ambassador Chen, in your assessment, is there any realistic possibility of meeting their technological requirements within the given timeframe? Can we develop faster than light travel, quantum communication networks, and the other capabilities they consider essential?" Sarah exchanged glances with Dr. Elizabeth Warren, who had accompanied her to provide technical context for their rejection. Using conventional research and development methods, it would take several centuries to achieve even basic versions of their technologies. By then, they will have advanced far beyond anything we could hope to match. A murmur of despair rippled through the assembly. Dreams of joining a vast galactic community, of accessing knowledge and resources beyond Earth's limitations, were crumbling before their eyes. However, Sarah continued, and the murmur died instantly, "I believe we have been approaching this challenge from the wrong perspective. We have been trying to follow their path, to duplicate their achievements using their methods. But humanity has never succeeded by following someone else's blueprint." The Russian delegate, Admiral Yuki Volkov, leaned forward in her seat. "Are you suggesting there is an alternative approach to achieving interstellar capabilities?" "I am suggesting that we stop trying to join their civilization and start building our own," Sarah said, her words falling like stones into still water. "The Galactic Council rejected us because we do not fit their model of how a species should develop. Perhaps it is time to show them that their model is not the only way to reach the stars." The Brazilian representative, Dr. Carlos Mendoza, stood slowly. "Ambassador, what you are proposing sounds like declaring independence from a galactic community that has not accepted us as members. How exactly does one build an interstellar civilization from scratch?" Dr. Warren stepped forward to join Sarah at the podium. "The Council's rejection actually provided us with valuable intelligence about the galaxy's power structures and technological capabilities. We observed their station, their ships, their systems. More importantly, we learned that their advancement has made them complacent." "Explain," Santos requested. "Every species we encountered has followed similar developmental paths," Warren continued. "They achieved certain breakthroughs, then built upon those foundations incrementally. Their faster-than-light travel relies on manipulating spacetime. Their communication systems use quantum entanglement. Their energy production harnesses exotic matter. These are sophisticated solutions, but they are also predictable ones." The Indian representative, Dr. Priya Sharma, stood to address them. "You're suggesting that human innovation might find different solutions to the same problems?" "I am suggesting that human innovation might solve problems they have not even considered," Warren replied. "Throughout our history, our greatest achievements have come from unconventional thinking. We split the atom before we fully understood quantum mechanics. We reached our moon using computers less powerful than modern calculators. We have consistently achieved impossible things through sheer determination and creative problem solving." The assembly buzzed with renewed energy as representatives began to grasp the implications of what was being proposed. This was not surrender or acceptance of inferior status. This was a declaration of independence from galactic expectations. The German representative, Dr. Hans Müller, raised his hand. "What would such an endeavor require in practical terms? Resources, timeline, international cooperation?" Sarah had been waiting for this question. During the long journey back from the council station, she and her team had worked tirelessly to develop preliminary plans for what they privately called Project Genesis. It would require the complete restructuring of human civilization around a single goal, achieving technological independence and interstellar capability within 25 years, she said. "Half the time the council gave us to prove ourselves worthy of their attention." The timeline sent shockwaves through the assembly.
Representatives began speaking in urgent whispers as the magnitude of the proposal sank in.
Such a timeline would demand unprecedented cooperation, Santos observed. Every nation, every resource, every human being working toward the same objective.
The political challenges alone would be enormous.
The alternative is accepting permanent status as a galactic backwater, Sarah replied. The Council made it clear that they view us as children playing with primitive toys. They do not expect us to achieve meaningful advancement within their timeframe.
They are counting on us to remain isolated and irrelevant. The Japanese representative, Dr. Akira Tanaka, stood with visible excitement. The technological challenges are immense, but not impossible.
Japan has been developing theoretical frameworks for alternative propulsion systems. Combined with recent breakthroughs in artificial intelligence and quantum computing, we might be able to approach these problems from entirely new directions.
The European Union has been working on closed-loop ecological systems and resource management, added Dr. Muller. If we are to build an interstellar civilization, we will need to master techniques for maintaining human life in environments far from Earth.
Dr. Mendoza from Brazil leaned forward eagerly. The Southern Hemisphere Coalition has developed advanced biotechnology and genetic engineering capabilities.
If we are to spread across multiple star systems, we will need to adapt human physiology to different planetary environments.
Santos watched as representatives from every major power bloc began contributing to what was rapidly becoming a unified vision.
The rejection that should have crushed humanity's spirit was instead galvanizing them into unprecedented cooperation.
What you are all describing, she said slowly, amounts to the total transformation of human civilization. We would be committing every resource, every scientific advancement, every international collaboration toward a single goal. The social, economic, and political changes would be revolutionary. Madam Secretary General, Sarah said, stepping closer to the podium's edge, humanity stands at a crossroads. We can accept the Council's judgment and spend the next 50 years trying to catch up to their standards, hoping they might eventually consider us worthy of their attention. Or we can forge our own path to the stars and prove that their standards are not the only measure of galactic worthiness. The French representative, Ambassador Claire Dubois, stood with quiet dignity.
There is another consideration we must address.
If we succeed in building our own interstellar civilization, we will inevitably come into contact with Council member species again.
They may not appreciate our independence.
They may view our success as a threat to their established order.
A heavy silence fell over the assembly as the implications became clear.
What they were contemplating was not just technological advancement, but potential conflict with powers that possessed capabilities beyond human comprehension.
Admiral Volkov broke the silence with a grim smile. Throughout history, established powers have always viewed emerging ones as threats.
The question is not whether they will oppose our rise, but whether we are prepared to defend our achievements when that opposition comes. Santos stood slowly, her decision crystallizing as she looked out over the representatives of humanity. The United Nations was founded on the principle that diverse peoples could work together for common goals. Today, we face the ultimate test of that principle. Are we prepared to unite not just as nations, but as a species? The vote, when it came, was unprecedented in UN history. For the first time since the organization's founding, every single member nation voted in favor of a single resolution. The margin was not unanimous due to political differences, but because the alternative was unthinkable. Resolution 2157 established the Terran Development Initiative, a global program dedicated to achieving interstellar capability within 25 years. Every signatory nation committed to contributing their most advanced research, their greatest minds, and their primary resources to the effort. Within hours of the vote, the world began to change in ways that would have seemed impossible just days before. Research facilities in different countries opened their doors to international teams. Military technologies were declassified and shared. Competing corporations began collaborating on projects that transcended national boundaries. The Chinese government announced that their secret lunar mining operations would be expanded and open to international partners. The Americans revealed advanced propulsion research that had been classified for decades. The Russians offered access to their deep space monitoring networks. The Europeans committed their most sophisticated manufacturing capabilities to the project. But it was the smaller nations that provided some of the most crucial contributions.
Israel shared breakthrough developments in quantum computing.
South Korea offered revolutionary advances in materials science.
Australia provided access to rare earth elements essential for advanced electronics.
Nations that had been excluded from previous space programs suddenly found themselves essential partners in humanity's greatest endeavor. Within the first month, construction began on Luna City, a massive research and manufacturing facility on the Moon's surface.
The project employed technologies and international cooperation that made the International Space Station look like a child's toy.
Fusion reactors provided unlimited power. Advanced 3D printing systems created components from lunar raw materials. Gravity generators based on theoretical physics that had never been practically tested began their first experimental runs. The asteroid mining consortium launched within 6 weeks, sending robotic fleets to capture and process asteroids in the inner solar system. Resources that had been pipe dreams suddenly became reality as precious metals, rare elements, and even water ice flowed back to Earth and Luna City in unprecedented quantities. Perhaps most remarkably, the social changes kept pace with the technological ones. Humanity's rejection by the Galactic Council had created something that centuries of diplomacy had failed to achieve: genuine unity of purpose. National rivalries did not disappear overnight, but they took secondary importance to the species-wide goal of proving their worth to the galaxy. Universities around the world restructured their curricula to focus on interstellar technologies. Primary schools began teaching advanced mathematics and physics alongside traditional subjects. The smartest minds of a generation abandoned lucrative private careers to join TDI research teams. Popular culture reflected the transformation as well. Movies and books that had once focused on conflict between human nations now explored the challenges of interstellar exploration. Artists created works inspired by the dream of distant worlds. Musicians composed symphonies that captured the longing to walk beneath alien stars. By the end of the first year, humanity had achieved advances that the Galactic Council had assumed would take decades.
Prototype faster-than-light engines were undergoing testing in deep space.
Quantum communication networks connected Earth, Luna City, and the asteroid mining stations.
Advanced artificial intelligence systems were solving engineering problems that had baffled human scientists for generations.
But perhaps the most important development was one that could not be measured in technological terms. Humanity had discovered what they were truly capable of when united behind a common cause. The species that the Galactic Council had dismissed as chaotic and fragmented was proving that their diversity was actually their greatest strength. Every nation, every culture, every individual brought unique perspectives and capabilities to challenges that no single group could have solved alone. The chaos that the Council saw as weakness was actually an endless source of creative solutions. As Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of Luna City, watching Earth rise over the lunar horizon, she smiled at the irony of their situation. The Galactic Council had rejected humanity to maintain order and stability in their civilized galaxy. They had no idea that they had just given 8 billion humans a shared goal that would transform them from cosmic outcasts into something the galaxy had never seen before. The rejection meant to keep them in their place had instead freed them to forge their own path to the stars. And that path was about to lead them far beyond anything the Council had anticipated. Commander Zhang Wei felt the subtle vibration through the hull of the TDS Prometheus as her ship dropped out of its experimental faster-than-light drive for the first time in interstellar space. Through the main viewport, the red dwarf star Proxima Centauri burned with the steady light that had guided humanity's first steps beyond their home solar system.
"Drive shutdown complete," reported Lieutenant Torres from the engineering station. "All systems nominal. We have achieved stable position approximately 1 astronomical unit from Proxima Centauri.
Travel time from Sol system, 14 hours, 37 minutes. Zhang allowed herself a small smile of satisfaction. The journey that had taken the original probe Voyager over 40,000 years to complete, humanity had just accomplished in less than a day. The Prometheus represented 7 years of unprecedented international cooperation and technological innovation driven by humanity's rejection from the Galactic Council. "Launch the survey drones," she ordered. "Full spectrum analysis of the system.
I want to know everything about our new neighborhood."
The bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, their movements reflecting years of training that had prioritized competence over pageantry. Unlike the sleek, organic ships of Council species that seemed grown rather than built, the Prometheus was unmistakably human in design. Angular, practical, bristling with redundant systems and improvised solutions that had been refined through countless iterations. Her ship represented a fundamentally different approach to interstellar travel than anything the Council had developed. Where they had achieved faster-than-light capability through elegant manipulation of spacetime, humanity had brute-forced their way past the light barrier using pure energy and determination. Their drive systems required enormous power consumption and produced gravitational distortions that made stealth impossible, but they worked with materials and technologies that humans could manufacture independently. Commander, called Science Officer Dr. Sarah Kim from her station, I'm detecting artificial structures in the outer system. They appear to be mining operations. Zhang's attention sharpened immediately. Council presence? Negative. The technological signatures don't match any Council species we encountered. These appear to be automated systems, possibly abandoned. The energy readings suggest they've been inactive for several decades at minimum. This was exactly what Zhang had been hoping to find. Intelligence gathered during humanity's brief contact with galactic civilization had suggested that the galaxy was filled with ruins and remnants of species that had either gone extinct or simply moved on to other pursuits. The Council controlled the major trade routes and political centers, but vast regions of space remained unexplored or ignored by their advanced civilizations. Set course for the mining installations, Zhang ordered. Battle stations, but keep weapons powered down. We're explorers, not conquerors. As the Prometheus approached the outer system, the scale of what they were seeing became apparent. Massive automated platforms orbited the system's gas giants, their surfaces covered with what appeared to be refineries and manufacturing equipment. Ships that looked like they had been grown rather than built drifted in neat formations around central command structures. Estimated age of the installations? Zhang asked. Dr. Kim consulted her instruments carefully. Based on micrometeorite impact patterns and stellar radiation exposure, I would estimate these have been dormant for approximately 60 to 80 standard years. The technology level appears significantly more advanced than current human capabilities, but substantially less sophisticated than what we observed at the Council station. Zhang nodded thoughtfully. This matched the pattern they had expected to find. The galaxy was filled with species that had achieved interstellar capability, built small empires, then either vanished or transcended to levels of existence that no longer required physical infrastructure. The Council represented the most successful and stable civilizations, but they were hardly the only ones who had reached for the stars. Any signs of defensive systems or automated guardians? None detected. All systems appear to be in complete shutdown mode. Whatever happened here, it was planned rather than catastrophic. Zhang made her decision. Prepare boarding teams. Full scientific and engineering surveys. If these installations are truly abandoned, they represent the greatest intelligence windfall in human history. The next several hours transformed humanity's understanding of what was possible in terms of interstellar technology. The alien mining platforms had been built by a species that called themselves the Kethari, according to data records that the boarding teams discovered intact. They had achieved interstellar travel roughly 3 centuries before humanity had even developed agriculture. But the Kethari had never been accepted into the Galactic Council. Their technology, while advanced, had followed different developmental paths than the Council's preferred standards. They had specialized in automated systems and artificial intelligence rather than the biological and quantum technologies favored by Council species. Eventually, they had simply uploaded their consciousness into their computer networks and departed physical space entirely, leaving behind vast quantities of infrastructure and technological data. Commander, Dr. Kim reported after 12 hours of intensive surveys, this is extraordinary. Their automation technology is decades ahead of anything humans have developed, but it's based on principles we can understand and replicate. More importantly, their manufacturing systems are still functional. We could potentially reverse engineer and improve upon their designs. Zhang felt a surge of excitement that she carefully kept out of her voice. Estimated timeline for technological integration? With proper resources and personnel, we could have human-operated versions of this equipment within 2 years. The real prize, however, is their star charts and survey data. The Kethari explored and cataloged thousands of star systems across this region of the galaxy. Systems that the Council has never visited, containing resources and, potentially, other abandoned technologies. This was the breakthrough that humanity had been hoping for. The Terran Development Initiative had always known that they could not match the Council's technological superiority through conventional research and development. But the galaxy was old and vast, filled with the remnants of countless civilizations that had taken different paths to the stars. If humanity could claim and develop these forgotten regions, they could build their own technological base independent of Council approval. Over the following months, the Proxima Centauri system became humanity's first interstellar colony. Unlike the grand, unified cities built by Council species, the human settlement was a chaotic mixture of repurposed Kethari platforms, hastily constructed habitat modules, and mining operations that extracted resources with ruthless efficiency. The colony grew with startling speed as ship after ship arrived from the Sol system carrying personnel, equipment, and supplies. Fusion reactors powered manufacturing facilities that produced goods Earth could not create without rare elements available only in deep space. Hydroponic farms provided fresh food using techniques that combined human agricultural knowledge with Kethari automation systems. But it was the intelligence gathered from the star charts that truly accelerated humanity's expansion. Within 6 months of the Prometheus's first journey, human exploration fleets were visiting star systems hundreds of light-years from Earth. They found more abandoned installations, derelict ships, and, occasionally, small enclaves of non-Council species that had been overlooked by galactic civilization. Each discovery added to humanity's growing technological base and resource network. The Vortak had left behind gravitational manipulation technology that improved human ship designs. The Zen-3 had developed advanced materials that made human habitats more efficient. The Molari had created biotechnology that enhanced human adaptation to alien environments. More importantly, humanity was discovering that the galaxy was far more diverse and complicated than the Council acknowledged. Hundreds of species had achieved interstellar capability but remained outside the Council's sphere of influence. Many had been rejected, just as humanity had been. Others had simply chosen to avoid Council attention entirely. Zhang found herself appointed as the first admiral of the human interstellar fleet, commanding not just exploration vessels but a growing network of colonies, mining operations, and trading posts. The species that the Galactic Council had dismissed as too primitive for consideration was rapidly becoming a significant presence in unexplored regions of space. The transformation was remarkable not just in scope, but in character. Human settlements retained the chaotic, innovative spirit that had driven their species throughout history, but now applied it on an interstellar scale. Each colony developed its own character and specializations based on local resources and the cultural background of its settlers. New Shanghai, built in the asteroid belt of the Wolf 359 system, became a major manufacturing center specializing in starship construction. The settlers combined Chinese industrial expertise with Kethari automation to produce vessels faster and cheaper than anything possible in the Sol system. Liberty Station, established in orbit around a gas giant in the Tau Ceti system, focused on research and development. American scientific institutions partnered with European engineering corporations to push the boundaries of human technology using insights gathered from multiple alien civilizations. Nyota Uhura Colony, named after a fictional character who had inspired generations of African space enthusiasts, specialized in communications technology and served as the hub for humanity's growing interstellar communication network. Each settlement contributed to a growing body of human knowledge and capability that advanced far beyond anything the Council had predicted. More importantly, they were developing technologies and techniques that no Council species possessed. Human artificial intelligence systems, enhanced with Kethari programming techniques, began solving engineering problems that had baffled galactic civilization for centuries. Human biotechnology, combining terrestrial medical knowledge with alien genetic research, produced treatments and enhancements that exceeded Council medical capabilities. Human resource extraction and manufacturing, driven by the innovation born of scarcity, achieved efficiency levels that amazed species who had never faced true limitation. But, perhaps the most significant development was cultural. Humanity was not just expanding into space, they were transforming what it meant to be human. Colonists adapted to low-gravity environments, high radiation zones, and alien atmospheric compositions. Children born in space developed differently than their Earth-born parents, thinking in 3 dimensions and adapting to environments that would have killed their ancestors. These spaceborn humans maintained connections to Earth's cultures and values, but they were also creating something new. They were becoming the first truly interstellar human civilization, shaped not by the limitations of a single world but by the infinite possibilities of space itself. The Council had rejected humanity based on their assessment of a planet-bound species. They had no framework for understanding what humans might become once freed from those planetary constraints. Zhang stood on the observation deck of her flagship, the TDS Terra Nova, watching human ships move through the Vega system like a swarm of mechanical insects. Mining vessels extracted rare elements from asteroid belts. Construction ships assembled habitats in orbital zones. Transport vessels carried goods and people between growing settlements. In the distance, the latest addition to the human fleet was taking shape, the TDS Prometheus II, a vessel that combined human innovation with technologies reverse-engineered from a dozen different alien civilizations. It was larger, faster, and more capable than anything humanity had possessed just 2 years ago. More importantly, it was completely independent of any Council technology or approval. Humanity had proven that the galactic community's standards were not the only path to interstellar capability. The Galactic Council had given them 50 years to prove themselves worthy of consideration. In less than 10 years, humanity had built an interstellar empire that was already making contact with the edges of Council space. The question was no longer whether humans could achieve galactic-level technology. The question was what would happen when the Council realized that the primitive species they had dismissed was rapidly becoming their equal. And Zhang suspected that the answer to that question would determine the future of galactic civilization itself. High Chancellor ZYX stood before the curved viewport of her private chambers aboard Council Station, watching the familiar dance of ships around the neutron star that powered galactic civilization's heart. For 2 centuries, she had observed this view with satisfaction, knowing that every vessel represented the ordered progress of galactic society under Council guidance. Today, the sight filled her with uncharacteristic unease. The report on her desk contained information that challenged everything the Council had believed about the development of lesser species. The Terran humans, rejected barely a decade ago as too primitive for consideration, had somehow achieved not just interstellar travel, but had built what intelligence reports described as a rapidly expanding multi-system civilization. Her aide, Sub-Chancellor Veltar of the Zephyrian delegation, materialized beside her in a shimmer of controlled gases. The emergency session is prepared, High Chancellor. All permanent Council members are present, along with representatives from the Border Watch and Deep Space Monitoring divisions. ZYX nodded grimly. Have you reviewed the complete intelligence briefing? I have. If accurate, it represents a development unprecedented in recorded galactic history. No species has ever achieved such rapid advancement from rejection to near-Council technological parity. The Council chamber buzzed with tense energy as ZYX took her position at the central podium. Representatives from the galaxy's most powerful civilizations filled the concentric rings, but today their usual casual confidence was replaced by visible concern. Fellow councillors, ZYX began, we are here to address intelligence reports regarding the species previously catalogued as Homo sapiens from Terra 3. As you will recall, this species was rejected for Council membership approximately 10 standard years ago due to primitive technology and fragmented social structures. She activated the chamber's holographic display, showing a 3-dimensional map of local galactic space. Red indicators marked known human settlements and activity zones. Current intelligence suggests that the Terrans have established permanent colonies in no fewer than 47 star systems, with active operations detected in at least 30 additional systems. Their technological capabilities appear to have advanced far beyond anything we deemed possible for their species. A ripple of shocked murmurs ran through the assembly. Councillor Thexani of the Crystalline Collective spoke first, her crystalline form resonating with harmonic confusion. High Chancellor, this timeline is impossible according to all established models of civilizational development. Even with access to Council technology, such advancement would require decades of careful integration and learning.
How could a primitive species achieve this independently?
ZYX-era gestured to activate another display, showing captured images of human ships and installations. Unlike the graceful, organic forms favored by Council civilizations, the human vessels appeared crude and aggressive, bristling with redundant systems and improvised modifications. Intelligence analysis suggests they have not duplicated our technologies, but have instead developed alternative solutions to the same fundamental challenges. Their faster-than-light drives operate on entirely different principles than our spacetime manipulation systems. Their communication networks use quantum entanglement but in ways we have never considered.
Most concerning, their manufacturing capabilities appear to exceed our own in terms of speed and efficiency.
Councillor Mordun of the Altaran Republic rose with visible agitation.
If these reports are accurate, the Terrans have violated fundamental principles of guided development.
Species are meant to advance gradually under Council oversight, not independently pursue technologies that could destabilize galactic order. Furthermore, added Councillor Vashti of the Energy Syndicate, our preliminary analyses indicate they have been acquiring technology through archaeological recovery rather than original research. They appear to be systematically claiming and reverse engineering installations left behind by extinct civilizations. The implications sent a chill through the assembled representatives. For millennia, the ruins of vanished civilizations had been treated as historical monuments, preserved but not exploited. The idea that a primitive species would simply claim and utilize these abandoned technologies was both shocking and disturbing.
What is their apparent objective? Asked Councillor Thexani. Are they attempting to challenge Council authority directly? ZYX-era activated another display showing human expansion patterns.
Intelligence suggests their primary goal is establishing complete technological and resource independence from existing galactic civilization. They are not seeking to join our community, but rather to build a parallel one that operates outside our influence. The chamber fell silent as the full implications became clear. The Galactic Council had maintained order for thousands of years by ensuring that all advanced species either joined their community or remained isolated on their homeworlds. The idea of an independent interstellar civilization developing outside their oversight represented a fundamental threat to their authority.
High Chancellor, said Admiral Kekstar from the Border Defense Division, what is their military capability? Should the Council consider them a direct threat?
That assessment is complicated, ZYX-era replied carefully.
Human military technology appears to be advancing as rapidly as their civilian capabilities.
Their vessels are heavily armed by the standards of newly space-capable species, and their expansion pattern suggests they are prepared to defend their claimed territories. But surely their technology remains inferior to Council standards, pressed Councillor Mordun.
ZYX-era hesitated before responding.
Recent intelligence suggests that in certain areas, human technology may actually exceed our capabilities. Their artificial intelligence systems appear more advanced than anything we have developed.
Their materials science has produced substances we cannot replicate. Their biological adaptation techniques have allowed them to colonize environments we would consider uninhabitable. The admission sent shockwaves through the assembly.
For the first time in galactic history, a species rejected by the Council was not only challenging their authority but potentially exceeding their capabilities in key areas. This situation cannot be allowed to continue, declared Councillor Vashti. If other species observe the Terrans achieving interstellar power without Council approval, it could encourage similar independence movements throughout our sphere of influence.
What do you propose? Asked ZYX-era. Direct intervention.
Send a Council fleet to establish control over Terran space and integrate their territories into our existing colonial administration.
Their rapid advancement must be brought under proper oversight before it destabilizes galactic order.
A heated debate erupted as representatives argued the merits of different approaches to the human problem.
Some advocated for immediate military intervention. Others suggested diplomatic negotiations that would bring humans into the Council system under strict supervision.
A few radical voices even suggested that humanity's independent development might be beneficial to galactic diversity. The debate was interrupted by an urgent communication from the Council's Deep Space Monitoring Network. Intelligence Officer Relfon materialized as a hologram in the chamber's center, her expression tight with barely controlled alarm.
High Chancellor, we have urgent developments regarding the Terran situation. Our monitoring stations have detected massive energy signatures in the Ross 128 system, approximately 12 light-years from Council space. Analysis indicates the construction of what appears to be a major military installation. The chamber erupted in concerned voices as the implications became clear. The humans were not just expanding randomly through unexplored space, they were positioning themselves for potential conflict with Council forces. Furthermore, continued Relthon, we have confirmed reports of Terran contact with several non-Council species in the region. The Korthani Trade Federation, the Yarrow Mining Collective, and at least 3 independent world governments have reportedly entered into formal agreements with human authorities. This was perhaps the most alarming development of all. The Council maintained its authority partly through controlling contact between different species. If humans were independently establishing diplomatic and economic relationships with other civilizations, they were creating a network that could challenge Council dominance. How did they locate and contact these species? Asked Councillor Thexani. Unknown, but evidence suggests they have acquired star charts and navigation data from archaeological sites. They appear to have access to information about regions of space that even our surveys have not fully mapped. ZYXera felt a cold certainty settling over her. The situation was spiraling beyond anything the Council had anticipated or prepared for. The primitive species they had casually dismissed was rapidly becoming a major galactic power with technologies, resources, and alliances that could threaten the stability of their entire civilization. High Chancellor, said Admiral Kekstar, I formally request authorization to deploy First Fleet to the Terran border regions. We need to establish Council authority before this situation deteriorates further. Denied, ZYXera replied immediately. We do not have sufficient intelligence about Terran military capabilities to risk direct confrontation. If they have achieved the technological advancement indicated by these reports, a military approach could result in catastrophic losses. Then, what do you propose? Demanded Councillor Vashti. We cannot simply ignore a threat to galactic order. ZYXera made her decision with the weight of millennia of Council authority behind her. We will send an official diplomatic mission to establish formal contact with Terran leadership. We will assess their actual capabilities and intentions through direct observation. If necessary, we will offer them controlled membership in the galactic community under strict supervision. And if they refuse, asked Councillor Mordun. Then, we will know we face a genuine threat to galactic stability, and we will respond accordingly. The vote to authorize the diplomatic mission passed unanimously, but ZYXera could see the fear in her colleagues' expressions. For the first time in their recorded history, the Galactic Council was approaching another species not from a position of unquestioned superiority, but as potential equals. As the emergency session concluded and representatives departed for their various homeworlds, ZYXera remained in the empty chamber, studying the holographic display of human expansion. The red indicators seemed to pulse like a spreading infection across the galaxy's spiral arms. She had rejected humanity's application for Council membership based on established protocols and careful assessment of their capabilities. It had seemed like a routine decision, one of hundreds she had made throughout her tenure as High Chancellor. Now she realized that dismissing humanity might have been the most catastrophic mistake in galactic history. Instead of guiding their development along acceptable paths, the Council had driven them to forge their own way to the stars. Instead of controlling their advancement, they had motivated them to develop technologies and alliances that could challenge everything the Council had built. The diplomatic mission would launch within days, but ZYXera suspected it was already too late. The humans had been given a decade to build their independence, and they had used that time to transform themselves into something unprecedented in galactic civilization. The species that the Council had rejected as too primitive to matter was about to prove that their rejection had freed humanity to become something far more dangerous, a civilization that could succeed without Council approval or oversight. And if they could do it, what would stop every other rejected species from attempting the same path to independence? For the first time in 2 centuries of leadership, High Chancellor ZYXera faced the possibility that the Galactic Council's authority was not as absolute as they had believed. The humans had challenged that authority simply by proving that their way was not the only way to reach the stars.
The question now was whether galactic civilization could adapt to accommodate that challenge, or whether it would fragment into conflict that could reshape the galaxy itself.
Ambassador Sarah Chen stood in the command center of Destiny Station, humanity's newest deep space installation positioned at the edge of Council space.
Through the massive transparent aluminum viewport, she could see the elegant ships of the Galactic Council's diplomatic fleet approaching under escort by human vessels that dwarfed them in size and bristled with defensive systems. 15 years had passed since her humiliating rejection at the Council's hands. Now, at 68, she commanded not just a diplomatic mission but an interstellar empire that spanned over 200 star systems and included alliances with 43 independent species that had never bowed to Council authority. Incoming transmission from the Council flagship, reported Communications Officer Lieutenant Park. High Chancellor ZYX-ERA requests permission to dock and begin formal negotiations.
Sarah smiled at the irony.
The same Chancellor who had dismissed humanity as primitive was now requesting permission to enter human space.
Permission granted. Direct them to Docking Bay 7 and inform them that I will receive Chancellor ZYX-ERA in Conference Room Alpha in 1 hour.
Should we implement standard security protocols? Asked Captain Morrison, the station's military commander.
Full diplomatic protocols, Sarah replied.
But keep First Fleet positioned within 1 light hour of our location.
The Chancellor should understand that humanity is no longer defenseless. As the Council delegation made their way through Destiny Station's corridors, Sarah could imagine their shock at what they were seeing.
The station represented the pinnacle of human engineering achievement, combining technologies reverse-engineered from dozens of extinct civilizations with innovations that had emerged from humanity's unique approach to problem-solving. The corridors were wider and taller than Council stations, designed to accommodate the diverse alliance of species that now worked alongside humans. Gravity zones adjusted automatically for different physiologies. Atmospheric processors maintained dozens of different environmental conditions. Translation systems handled over 300 languages and communication methods. But it was the scale that would truly shock the Council representatives. Destiny Station was not just larger than their political center at Station Nexus, it was one of 12 such installations that served as regional capitals for different sectors of human space. Each commanded resources and manufacturing capacity that exceeded anything the Council had achieved. Sarah entered Conference Room Alpha precisely on time, wearing the formal blue uniform of the Terran Diplomatic Corps but now adorned with insignia representing the Human Stellar Alliance. She was no longer just Earth's representative, but the chief diplomat for a multi-species civilization that rivaled the Council in scope and exceeded it in several key capabilities.
High Chancellor ZYX-ERA entered with a delegation of 8 representatives from major Council species.
Sarah noted with satisfaction that they wore full diplomatic regalia, acknowledging humanity as equals rather than the primitive suppliants they had once dismissed.
Ambassador Chen, ZYX-ERA said, offering the formal greeting gesture of galactic diplomacy.
On behalf of the Galactic Council, I express gratitude for your willingness to meet with our delegation. High Chancellor, Sarah replied, returning the gesture with precise protocol. The Human Stellar Alliance welcomes the opportunity for formal diplomatic contact with the Galactic Council.
The subtle phrasing was deliberate.
Sarah was not representing Earth seeking Council approval, but speaking as the leader of an independent galactic power offering to negotiate with peers. Your civilization has achieved remarkable development since our last meeting, ZYX-ERA observed carefully. The Council wishes to understand how such rapid advancement was possible and to explore opportunities for mutual cooperation. Sarah gestured to chairs around a conference table that had been precisely configured for the mixed physiologies of the attendees. Our advancement was possible because humanity was freed from the constraint of following predetermined development paths. When the Council rejected our application for membership, you inadvertently gave us the greatest gift possible, the freedom to find our own way to the stars.
Councillor Thexani of the Crystalline Collective resonated with harmonic confusion.
Your species achieved faster than light travel, quantum communications, and advanced manufacturing without Council guidance. Our models indicate this should be impossible within such a time frame. Your models assume that all species must follow the same technological development path, replied Dr. Elizabeth Warren, who now served as Sarah's chief scientific advisor. Humanity's approach has always been to solve problems using whatever resources and methods are available, rather than waiting to develop ideal solutions.
Sarah activated the room's holographic display system, showing the current extent of human space.
The council delegation visibly reacted to the scope of what they were seeing. The Human Stellar Alliance currently encompasses 207 star systems with permanent human settlements, Sarah continued. We maintain diplomatic and economic relationships with 43 independent species, control approximately 12% of known galactic rare element production, and operate the largest civilian starship fleet in this region of the galaxy. The numbers spoke for themselves. In 15 years, humanity had built an interstellar empire that commanded resources and capabilities rivaling the Council's 1,000-year-old federation. How did you locate and contact so many non-Council species? Asked Councillor Mordun of the Ultaran Republic. Our surveys indicated that this region of space was largely uninhabited. Your surveys focused on systems with Council-standard environmental conditions, replied Admiral Zhang Wei, who now commanded the entire human stellar fleet. Humans learned to adapt to a broader range of planetary environments, which allowed us to discover civilizations that Council species would consider living in uninhabitable conditions. Sarah highlighted several systems on the display. The Korthani, for example, evolved in high radiation environments that would kill most Council species. The Yaril developed in gas giant atmospheres that your people cannot survive without significant technological intervention. The Nexari are silicon-based life forms that live in temperatures that would melt organic compounds. By developing adaptation technologies rather than environmental control systems, added Dr. Warren, we were able to make contact with species that the Council never knew existed. But it was Admiral Zhang who delivered the information that truly shocked the Council delegation. We have also discovered that many of these species were rejected by the Council using the same criteria applied to humanity. Some as recently as 50 years ago, others centuries past. They were told they were not ready for galactic civilization and left to develop in isolation. The implications hung heavy in the air. The Galactic Council had unknowingly created a vast population of rejected species, many of which had achieved significant technological advancement on their own. Humanity had simply found and unified them into an alternative power structure. This alliance of rejected species, said ZYX Era carefully, what are its intentions regarding Council space and authority? Sarah leaned forward slightly, meeting the High Chancellor's gaze directly. The Human Stellar Alliance has no aggressive intentions toward Council territory or member species. However, we also do not recognize Council authority over independent civilizations or unexplored regions of space. We believe the galaxy is large enough for multiple forms of civilization to coexist. And if the Council disagrees with that assessment, asked Councillor Vashti of the Energy Syndicate. Admiral Zhang answered with the quiet confidence of someone who commanded overwhelming military superiority. Then, the Council will discover that the Alliance is fully prepared to defend its independence and its member species. Our defensive capabilities have been tested against several hostile forces and found to be more than adequate. This was not an empty threat. Human military technology had evolved along different lines than Council systems, emphasizing raw firepower, redundant systems, and adaptability over elegant efficiency. Alliance fleets had successfully defended their territory against attacks from 3 different Council client species that had attempted to claim human-controlled systems. High Chancellor, Sarah said, steering the conversation toward her real objective, humanity did not request this meeting to issue threats or demonstrate our capabilities. We requested it because the galaxy faces challenges that require cooperation between all advanced civilizations, regardless of their political affiliations. She activated another display showing long-range sensor data from the galactic rim. Our deep space monitoring networks have detected evidence of transgalactic civilizations moving in our direction. Species from other galaxies with technology that exceeds both Council and Alliance capabilities. Within 50 to 100 years, we may face contact with powers that could threaten all local galactic life. The Council delegation exchanged concerned glances. Their own monitoring systems had detected similar anomalous energy signatures, but they had assumed they were natural phenomena rather than evidence of approaching civilizations. You're suggesting that Council and Alliance forces should coordinate to address this potential threat, asked ZYX Era. I am suggesting that the petty territorial disputes between galactic powers become irrelevant when faced with forces that could render all of us extinct, Sarah replied. The Alliance would be willing to share our defensive technologies and strategic coordination in exchange for Council cooperation and formal recognition of Alliance independence.
The offer was carefully calculated. Sarah knew that the Council's greatest fear was losing their authority over galactic civilization.
But she also knew that they were practical enough to recognize when cooperation served their interests better than conflict.
What specific terms would such cooperation involve? Asked Councillor Thexani.
Dr. Warren activated a detailed proposal that the Alliance leadership had spent months developing. Joint research initiatives combining Council quantum manipulation techniques with Alliance adaptive manufacturing. Shared intelligence networks covering all known galactic space.
Coordinated defense protocols that could respond to threats regardless of their origin point.
And, most importantly, formal agreements establishing clear spheres of influence that prevent conflicts between our civilizations. The terms were generous but firm. The Alliance was offering to share its most advanced technologies and coordinate with Council forces, but only as equals partners in galactic defense.
Admiral Zhang added the military component of the proposal.
Alliance fleets would coordinate with Council forces for mutual defense, but retain complete operational independence. No Alliance forces would operate under Council command, and no Council forces would operate under Alliance command, but both would respond to verified threats against any galactic civilization. It was a proposal that acknowledged the reality of the galactic balance of power. The Council could no longer claim absolute authority over galactic civilization, but neither could they be simply ignored or dismissed.
High Chancellor Zyxera was quiet for several minutes as she processed what she was hearing.
The species that the Council had rejected as primitive was offering to save galactic civilization from external threats, but only as equal partners rather than subordinate clients.
The Galactic Council will need to deliberate on these proposals, she said finally. Such fundamental changes to galactic governance structures cannot be decided quickly.
Of course, Sarah replied diplomatically.
The Alliance is prepared to negotiate the details of cooperation over whatever timeframe is necessary.
However, I should note that our deep space monitoring indicates the transgalactic civilizations are approaching more rapidly than initially calculated. We estimate first contact within 30 years rather than 50. The timeline compressed everything. 30 years was barely sufficient to prepare coordinated defenses against unknown threats, even with full cooperation between all galactic powers. As the Council delegation prepared to depart, High Chancellor Zyxera paused at the conference room doorway.
Ambassador Chen, may I ask a personal question?
Of course.
When we rejected humanity's application 15 years ago, did you anticipate that it would lead to this outcome?
Sarah smiled with the wisdom of someone who had watched her species transform from cosmic outcasts to galactic powers.
High Chancellor, I hoped that humanity would prove your assessment wrong.
But I never imagined we would build something greater than what we had originally sought to join.
And, now?
Now I hope that both our civilizations are wise enough to set aside pride and territorial concerns in favor of survival. The galaxy is vast enough for multiple approaches to civilization, but it may not be large enough to survive what is coming from outside it. As the Council ships departed Destiny Station, Sarah watched them accelerate toward their home space-carrying proposals that would reshape galactic civilization.
The irony was complete. The species rejected for being too primitive to join galactic society was now offering to lead its defense against external threats.
The Human Stellar Alliance had proven that the Council's way was not the only path to the stars. More importantly, they had proven that diversity of approach and independence of thought were strengths rather than weaknesses when facing the unknown challenges of a vast and dangerous universe. Whether the Council would accept that lesson in time to save galactic civilization remained to be seen. But humanity had already answered the greatest question of all. They had shown that rejection was not defeat, but opportunity to forge a better path. The empire they had built among the stars was not just a testament to human determination, but proof that the galaxy's greatest strength lay not in uniform compliance with established standards, but in the diverse solutions that emerged when different species were free to reach for greatness in their own ways. The Council had rejected Earth, believing they were maintaining order. Instead, they had unleashed humanity to build something that would preserve galactic civilization itself when external threats arrived to test everything they had built among the stars. And, in the end, That was the most human response of all, turning rejection into revolution, disadvantage into opportunity, and isolation into the foundation of an empire that would stand as guardian for all the galaxy's children, regardless of whether they had ever been considered worthy of acceptance.